listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello and welcome, everyone. We have such a special show for you today. You have tuned into Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn presents Pet Psychic Aminah. But guess what? Aminah's not here today. She has the day off. Good for her. She's on vacation today. And I have a guest co-host, and we also have a guest. And our guest is actually a psychic. She's an intuitive. So we do have a psychic in the house. So before I bring my guest and guest co-host on, I just want to let you know that we are live streaming right now. Not a podcast. We're live. Anything goes. We're on Business Talk Radio and social media, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Twitch. And we are thrilled to have you. This is our fourth show today, and we've got two more, so we're very excited. I'm going to play a clip first before I bring out my guest co-host and guests. Let's take a look.
The world is changing, and your company needs to change with it. Whether it's procurement, employment, marketing, or customer service, it's now more important than ever for your business processes to be inclusive to people with disabilities. Hi, I'm Trish Robichaud with Changing Paces, and I'm here to tell you that making your business processes accessible to people with disabilities is simply good for business. Accessibility and inclusion are the law. But here's what you may not realize. Disability inclusion is an opportunity, not an obstacle. In fact, a recent 4-year study found that companies that fully embraced disability inclusion had a 30% higher profit margin than those that didn't. Your investment in staff disability inclusiveness training can pay off in areas like innovation, brand recognition, as well as customer and employee satisfaction and loyalty, not to mention productivity and profitability. At Changing Paces, we can help you make that happen for your business. Our experts have real-life experience that will help your team gain insight and best practices they won't get anywhere else. And we can help you create a customized training program to bring your organization into compliance with local and industry regulations. This topic is very close to my heart for me, very personal. Dealing with the challenges of MS for the past 25 plus years and having lost my job as a result of my diagnosis back then, I've made it my mission to bring disability out of the darkness and create a more welcoming environment for people of all abilities. As a pioneer in the field of inclusiveness, our company developed and implemented one of the first accessible customer service training programs in Canada. We provide complete online training solutions that blend with your branding, your policies, and your systems. Between our disability subject matter experts and our technical partners, we can provide you with both the content and the platform that you need to create an evergreen training program that empowers your people while it transforms your organization and your company culture. In short, we make disability inclusion easy in all parts of your business. Contact us now for a quote or consultation at info@changingpaces.com. Your bottom line will thank you.
Welcome back. Let me bring my guest co-host, Trish Robichaud. Good to see you, Trish.
Awesome. And a pleasure to see you. You look amazing as always.
I think my hair is getting bigger by the moment.
It's a COVID thing. I know. Mine used to be short, and I was a few pounds lighter before COVID. Yeah.
Your hair's long now.
Yeah, it's getting there. It was like cropped short before COVID. I haven't had a haircut since January of last year. Yeah.
So I just was having a conversation with my mom about haircuts because my hair was long and I've cut. And of course, today I was cutting. I'm always cutting and I keep going in with the scissors and trimming it shorter and shorter. But what do you think you like better, long or short on you?
I It's getting warm now. The weather's getting warm, so the long is kind of getting on me. Getting on my one nerve left. Yeah.
Well, it looks pretty on you, so whatever you decide.
Thank you. My husband loves it. But, yeah.
Men, yes, I think men do love long hair. That's what I've always been told.
Yeah.
So we kind of have a cool setup for today because, as I mentioned, Aminah's got the day off and certainly well deserved. And so you and I are going to be interviewing the Reverend Doti Boon, and she is backstage. We've had her on this show one other time before. She's good friends with Aminah, and she's a very interesting person. She's got a great background. So let's bring her on.
Cool.
Okay,
Hello.
there I am. Yay.
There you are. Good to see you.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, nice to see everybody. Good morning. Good morning.
Good
And,
morning, Doti.
I say morning. It's just a little bit afternoon here in San Jose, California. I don't know what it is wherever you are.
Well, Trish is in Canada, and we're in the same time zone, Eastern. So we're it's 3:30 in the afternoon.
Good.
Right on.
Yes.
Pleasure to meet you, Reverend Doti. That is so cool. A reverend who is a psychic. That is.
Well,
really
I'm the reverend
interesting.
of a spiritualist multi-faith church.
That is
So
amazing.
most of the people that come to my church do some type of intuitive work, and we have many. Every religion is represented in our church, so it's a very unique place. And we talk about chakras. We start out of prayer saying, "Open up your chakras," which is pretty unique in a church. It's not, but it's very. I think California tends to be like that. I was sitting here having breakfast. It's just avocados picked from my tree on toast, and I thought, I bet there's a lot of places where they can't just go out in the backyard and pick an avocado and have it on toast for breakfast.
That's
Certainly
definitely
not.
cool. Definitely true. Why don't you tell us a little more about your church?
Okay. I decided as a child, I had been raised in just about every religion. It was interesting. I was baptized Episcopalian, Methodist, Catholic, and then my folks became Baha'is. Then they got divorced, and my mother married a man who was Jewish. So during my lifetime, I experienced all these different religions, and each religion had the basic core value of love. And it wasn't just love people who are the same religion, it's love everyone. So that's what I bring about in our church, is that feeling that whatever religion you are, you can honor that religion and still attend at a place that's all inclusive. So that we have people who are LGBT, we have people who come from different countries, different religions, different lifestyles, and they all gather together in community where they talk about their similarities instead of arguing about their differences.
Wow.
I think that's brilliant, isn't it, Trish? I love that.
Powerful, really powerful. And now I didn't know why God called me to be a guest fill-in last minute here for Dr. Jacalyn. And now I know exactly why, Reverend Doti, because my life is all about inclusion. My whole career is about disability inclusion, which is including people of all abilities. And the fact that you have a multicultural ministry, that just tops it for me. That's awesome.
Well, thank you, because I would like to take you to my landlord. Our back of the church is all torn up, and people cannot make it to the church that are on, with canes or wheelchairs or whatever. And we're having this ongoing thing, and the landlord says, "Well, just have them park around the block." You don't understand, so especially when it's raining. Those rare days it rains in Northern California, but these people can't. They need to be able to access the door in just a few steps or rolls or canes or whatever. And the landlord just doesn't understand that. And I don't know how you get that point across, Trish, to include everyone.
Doti, can I call you Doti?
Oh, sure, everybody does it.
You have to reach out to me, because what I would do is I would reach out to him for you, introduce myself as an accessibility compliance expert, talk to him a little bit about the ADA, and we'll see where the conversation goes from there.
Okay. Well, it's a she, and I prefer to deal with a man on this situation right now. Right now, I would prefer to deal with an aardvark.
There you
This
go.
is very difficult negotiations.
Well, the door is open.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Trish.
I would take Trish up on that. Trish, isn't it the law? Isn't it? Did they have to?
The law. It is the law. It's the Americans with Disabilities Act, and you cannot prohibit. You cannot prohibit access to any facility because of someone's disability. So whoever the landlord is, she doesn't know the law, and clearly she needs to meet somebody who knows the law, especially in your state. And of course, the ADA is federal, so it covers every state. Okay,
Yeah.
but there will also be local laws in your own municipality or your own state that will have legislation as well, likely. So yeah, I would definitely find somebody, especially somebody who can make a face-to-face meeting with that person. I don't know how possible that is under COVID right now, but yeah, if the person is avoiding any kind of need for mitigating the situation, that's a big red flag.
Yes, because we have people that are hearing impaired, people who are very sight impaired. So it makes it difficult for them to get, as I say, a lot of the people are on a cane. Yeah,
absolutely. So. Just once you hit 60, the incidence rate of people having mobility challenges skyrockets, right?
Right. And that we do have an older congregants, because right now the idea of religion is very difficult for a lot of the younger generations, because they were either hurt or felt abandoned by their religion. A lot of horror stories I hear of what happened in various churches. And so they are kind of hesitant to enter a door of something that's called a church. And I don't blame them. I can understand. As I said, the stories they tell me are horrendous. And we see some of that in the newspapers of things that have happened under the guise of religion.
It's sad. It's really, truly sad. I actually have my own story of why I left the Catholic faith a long time ago. Yeah. So I tell people I'm not religious, but I'm deeply spiritual.
Right. I don't know.
No religion on the planet is going to prevent me from having a relationship with my higher power.
Right. Good. Oh, I love that. That's perfect way to say that. I'm hearing little munchkins in the background. Are you getting that?
Little bit of feedback.
No, yeah, but it's kind of interesting. I feel like we've entered Oz with that beautiful background that you have and all the greenery, and little munchkins are talking in the background, and it's like, welcome.
Yeah, little fairies here and there.
Yes.
On the forest floor over here. Yeah.
It's so funny. I have a couple of comments. First of all, when Reverend Dottie, when you were speaking, I thought, oh my gosh, that's why Trish and Reverend Dottie were brought together. When you said about inclusion, I thought, ta-da! They're like, because I was trying to think of how the three of us were brought together. So that was the first thing. The second thing is, if the landlord, let's say the landlord's aware of the situation, but doesn't have the financial capability of making these.
No, that's not the problem. This a corporation owns loads of properties around the county. It's an older building, and they just don't want to put money into the repaving the back. They said, well, we put slurry on there. I said, slurry I don't want to go into that. And this time it's just, thank you so much, Trish, and I'll be contacting you later, and we can talk about this. Yeah. Great. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. So, Reverend Dottie, I have a question then. Trish, please chime in if you would. In terms of being an intuitive, what types of questions, for people, they don't know anything about it, let's say, they don't know what an intuitive does, what type of questions do people bring to you?
But the same questions that you would probably sit in a coffee shop and talk about. I have people that call me and say, is the guy I'm dating the one for me? Is my husband cheating on me? Are my kids ever going to amount to anything? Should I move? What should I do about my job? What's this strange feeling I have in my heart? Do you think I am going to have a heart attack? Amazingly, I do loads of readings, and yet no one has really said, when's this pandemic going to end? Or what's the virus? It's like they don't want to see what's going on here. They want to know what's going to happen in the future. And I thought that was very interesting, where so many people are just, oh, well, we're in a pandemic now. When's Johnny going to be able to learn to play the clarinet? You know, there's very interesting questions that I get. And I love this work because, like, this week I've been talking to a man who is being sentenced to 5 years in prison, and he wants to know what he can do about it. And I came through, and what's happening is the bracelet he's wearing on his ankle is giving false information. So I told him where to go to get a hold of the manufacturer and have it recalibrated. And I just got a call from his wife yesterday saying, yes, the calibration showed that he hasn't been drinking and he hasn't been leaving. He hasn't been doing the things that the bracelet was saying he was doing. Now, that's going to probably shorten the time that this man is going to prison. Little things like that come up in readings always amaze me. I'm a medium. What that means is I have a spirit guide that talks to me, and his name is Mahalaleel, and Ma started talking to me when I was 5 years old. So I believe everybody has a spiritual helper within them, but most of the time they're the same gender. So when you're a little girl and a man starts talking to you in your head, you realize that it's not the same voice as other people say when they are thinking things. And I say, yeah, and I call it Ma because he's always talking to me about stuff. And right now, the very interesting thing to say is my spirit guidance comes from India, and he's been talking to me in a very sad voice about what's going on in India with this pandemic, because he said he would no longer was on the planet after 1822. And he said in his lifetime, he twice had seen the same thing going on in his country. And he's so sad to see these people who their lifespan had felt like it was going to be longer, and it's now being shortened. Not that he's worried about people dying. He says everybody's going to die, which sometimes people don't want to hear that. You know, everybody's going to die. But he says right now, the people are so afraid. And he said it's the fear that is bothering our spiritual helpers. And I think that's an interesting difference. Death isn't what bothers people. It's the fear that's going through the whole country right now.
Wow.
I was just thinking about that. There's a lot in there that we could peel back. I want to go back to what you first said about the coffee shop. So could you be sitting in a coffee shop and there are people around, you don't know them, and all of a sudden you start getting messages?
No, I'm not intrusive at all. The only time I will do the only time I do a reading on someone is if they ask me. It's like the door is shut and they ask me, and I say, well, let's make an appointment and get out of wherever we are so I can talk to you on one-on-one. And and quite often people, what they hear, they say, but that's not going to work for me. And I'll say, well, let's just look at it. Okay. Forgiveness is the biggest thing that people say, well, that's not going to work. You know, they also come in and say, well, you know, I hate my husband because he's da-da-da-da. And I'll say, okay, but your hatred is going to be working against you, not against him. So let's find a way to, roll this back and look at it. My spirit guide is not going to tell a woman if her husband's cheating on her. People say, well, that's why I came here. I want to know if he's cheating. And Ma says, it's not about the cheating. It's how you are handling whatever's going on in your life. And let's talk about how you're handling this. Can you deal with forgiveness? Can you deal with acceptance? Can you deal with this relationship? If you feel he's cheating, are you going to get a divorce? well, you might want to check out what's really going on in the relationship. So Ma does a lot of relationship counseling through me, but not the way you would expect an answer of, well, aren't they doing such and such? No, I just talk to the person and tell them what's happening with them, not what other people are doing. I don't break anybody else's secrecy barrier. And after they've listened to that for a while, they get what I'm talking about, that it's about them and how they're handling the issues in their life.
Wow.
Very
That's
interesting.
got to be a tough pill to swallow for some of them, Dottie.
Mm-hmm. Right, because they want to, and I have people come in and say, well, my father is going to disown me in his will, isn't he? And I say, well, that's your father's situation. You need to talk to your father.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but I want to know.
Oh
You
my
see what I
goodness.
mean? There's this line where people want to know what other folks are doing, quote, to them, instead of asking the questions that they need to ask. Very interesting.
Wow.
That is very interesting. I wanted to just touch on something about forgiveness, and then we'd take a quick break. We just had a show on right before this, and a young man was describing how he was the passenger in a vehicle, and it was a slippery road, and the driver drove too quickly, car accident, and this guy ended up with a broken spine. And so he was told he's never going to walk again, and he had to forgive the person who was driving, because if he couldn't
Right.
forgive that person, he could never move forward. And he did find his way to forgiving him, and then his life completely flourished. Now he's like a fitness model coach. It's unbelievable. So it's the power of forgiveness for yourself.
Yes.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
and taking responsibility for yourself. That's another
Absolutely.
very, very important thing, so. But being an intuitive, every once in a while I might hear something from Ma about upcoming event, such as you better turn left at the next light because there's an accident in front of you. Those types of things for me personally are really interesting. And so I have folks that'll come up and say, hey, Dottie, what does Ma say? My mother, even when I was a little girl, would say, so what's Ma say? Or what does your friend say? She would say, what does your friend say about this? And having my family aware and accepting I'm the oldest of 10, and each one of us has been accepted for different things that were going on in our lives.
1 of 10.
Very
That's
good.
amazing.
Wow. Did your mother believe that you were hearing discussion from Ma? Like, I don't get that.
I did things that made her a believer. Not that I was trying to make her a believer. An interesting one was I was 8 years old, and one day I went and sat in my closet, and my mother came and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm cleaning my closet," which was, amazing to her because I've never cleaned anything in my life, I don't think. Anyway, and so 3 days in a row, I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to do anything. I wanted to sit in my closet. And my grandmother was in a completely different area of the country, and she was sick. And my mother was 8 months pregnant, and she kept hearing these notices that grandma's health was failing, grandma's health was failing. And so on the third day, I just came out and said, okay, I'm hungry. And my mom said, wait a minute, you haven't cleaned the closet. And I said, oh, I know. And she got a phone call, and a voice says, that my grandmother had died right then. And my mom said, what were you doing in the closet? I said, I was with grandma. And she had a room, and it had a window, and her nurse's name was Dolly. And I explained exactly what was going on during that whole death thing with my grandma. And of course, my mom called people who were there just to verify. And that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
So things like that made her a believer in my quote abilities. And so
that must have been very validating for you as a child to get that kind of confirmation from your mother that she believed you, when probably many of your friends thought you were, they were calling you names, basically.
No, they weren't, because I never said anything about it. I'll just say, hey, I'm really good at saying, I think we ought to turn left, or
okay.
I feel that
you didn't tell anybody. So
no.
yeah, I gotcha. I gotcha. But still, it had to feel. I guess if that's all you've ever known, then it doesn't feel like it's any strange at all, right?
Right. That's why I think everybody has a spirit guide, but if they're female, it's a female voice in their head, so they get to thinking it's them.
Wow.
Oh, I just had a thought. Yeah, where'd you get the thought from? Have you ever thought it before? No. Well, where did it come from? It's your spiritual helper, your spiritual guide, or whatever, your angel, your guardian angel, whatever you want to call it, has been talking to you all these years, and you just think it's you. And when you stop and look at it, and it's not, schizophrenia, it's that area of your brain that is pulling in messages. I believe that the Creator put us on the planet with somebody to help us. And that everybody has.
Here's my question, just for people might be thinking this. Is there a difference then between having a spiritual guide and your own intuition?
Not for you personally, it probably isn't. You don't have to know that this is a spirit guide. As long as you're dealing with the voices that you have in your head, whether it be yours or a positive energy, I don't think it has to be labeled. It's just that's who you are.
Interesting. Because I found for a lot of my life when I was younger, I would hear I don't want to say message, but do certain things and I wouldn't listen. And so I just thought I'm not listening to my intuition. Now that I'm older, I am. So I don't know if it's me or I have somebody helping me. I'm not sure, but whatever it is, I just listen now.
Right. And listen and say thank you. Be in gratitude.
I have always felt and talked to my clients about the fact that the intuitions that we get, the gut feelings that we get, I truly believe that comes from our higher power.
Right.
Okay, that it's a message. I think it's I'm getting a message. It's then that I have to listen to that. So I've always known that it's come from a higher power, but I never thought about it as a spirit guide before. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. And you can call it anything. You just know that you're being guided or you're being helped, and that divine guidance, as I said, you can call it anything. And it's what works for you. And for me, what was interesting is because Ma's name is Mahalalel. And of course, at 5 years old, I started calling him Ma. And it was about 10 years ago, I was looking through the Bible for some inspiration on a topic. And I saw the name Mahalalel in the Bible. And I stopped and I said, Ma, you're Adam's great grandson in the Bible. And he said, I'm more excited about being Methuselah's grandfather. And I love that. I mean,
wow.
I had to rush around and say, guess what? I found Ma in the Bible.
Oh my God. That must have been earth shattering for you.
It was. Yeah. And so.
Yeah. Reverend, did you start the church because you were guided by Ma, or was there some other impetus for that?
I was interested in New Thought religions because they were not just stuck in you have to follow one prophet or another. They were talking about, whether it would be unity or Unitarian or Church of Religious Science. That New Thought idea I really liked. And so I started pursuing my minister's license through one of those churches. And I got to a point of going, wait a minute. They don't talk about that intuitive psychic part of people. I would like to have a church who accepts those people that previously were called witches and burned at the stake. Exactly. I want to really let people know that we are intuitive beings, and that part of us can be nurtured and expanded instead of being shamed into remission. And so I thought, why not? Cool. My church first started out. I've had many foster kids, and so many of these foster kids, I wanted to do something to bring some spirituality into their life. So every Wednesday we had the Church of the Chocolate Chip Cookie, and the Church of the Chocolate Chip Cookie was everybody had an ingredient to put into the chocolate chip cookies, and if they didn't put their ingredient in at the right dimensions, the cookies wouldn't turn out. to show them that what they did in life they had a responsibility to doing certain things in life to get the product that they wanted. And so we would all get together at 7:00 after dinner in the kitchen, and we'd all and I'll say, okay, now let's pray that we have good cookies. And it became the Church of the Chocolate Chip Cookie. And I thought that was such a great idea for kids to realize their responsibilities in life and the ingredients they put in. And I thought, well, what if I talk to adults about the same thing? That there is a responsibility you have of being loving and kind and supportive and all those things. And those are the ingredients that you put into your life. And so that's part of my sermons is all about the ingredients you're putting into your life.
Excellent. I love that everyone has a role, everyone contributes, and they have their own unique piece that they bring to the puzzle.
Exactly.
Dr. Jacalyn, I think we're past due on announcement from a sponsor, eh?
Yes, thank you. We're going to take a break and hear from some of our sponsors. Thank you, Trish and Reverend Dottie. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Zane Carson Carruth, and I'm the author of this book, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever.
Reading is magic. Studies have shown that reading to your children lays the foundation for greater success in life. Reading helps develop language and vocabulary skills. It helps improve memory, and it encourages curiosity and inspires creativity. The benefits are immeasurable, and as a parent, you'll benefit too. In only 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll be creating more memories and a bonding experience that will last for years to come. So take time to read to your children. Read them books about things that engage and interest them. Tales of fairies and magic fascinate children, and as everyone knows, the Tooth Fairy is at the top of the list. If your child loves magic, wands, adventure, and what child doesn't, you'll love reading them books from the trademarked series, The World's First Tooth Fairy Ever. Follow along as Bella, the world's first tooth fairy, accidentally starts the tooth fairy tradition. Learn the tricks of being a professional tooth fairy in the book, Bella Starts a Tooth Fairy School. Your child's imagination will soar as you read the adventures of Bella and her magic wand. These wonderful books are available at worldsfirsttoothfairy.com and at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Walmart.
I tried to ignore it, but my stomach issues were out of control. I couldn't fix them on my own. It was time to do something. A friend said the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation could help me find a specialist. Feels good to finally have a plan. Don't hide your symptoms. Get help at spillyourguts.org today.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Hello and welcome back. It means everything in life, isn't it? It's time and fate that brought us together, the three of us, and I think it's fantastic.
No kidding, eh?
Yes. So we're having a great conversation here with my guest co-host Trish and our guest Reverend Doti. So thank you again for being here. We were talking about intuition and a number of other things, and I wanted to just go back to that for a moment. When you think about, I'll start with Reverend Doti. When you think about Ma and you think about your intuition, can you share with us probably what is the thing you're most proud of a decision you made based on something that Ma shared or something that you decided to do by your intuition?
Oh my gosh, there has been so many. In my lifetime, I have done so many different things. And each time it's like all of a sudden I wake up and say, I'm going to do this. I went to law school when I was quite a bit younger. And because my guide law said that would be something that would help me during my life. And unfortunately, I didn't graduate from law school because I got pregnant with my first child and then didn't go back, but became a paralegal. And in working with people that couldn't help themselves. And I think that's been one of the greatest gifts that I've gotten is every time I get to a place where I meet somebody who can't help themselves, my guide then gives me all of these clues and intuitively what to tell them to do so they can make their life work. I think that's the greatest gift that I've gotten from my guide is the ability to help other people find the path that they've been looking for.
Nice.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. How about you, Trish?
Yeah. Wow. There's one incident with one client in particular that I will remember forever. She was in Maryland and was married, had 4 boys, chronic health condition, spinal injury due to a car accident when she was 18 years old. She raised those 4 boys from the couch. Okay. She could not stand. Okay. Her pain level was so extreme that she had to be horizontal 90% of the time. Well, her husband had a bit of an attitude about being a caregiver. He had a great deal of resentment around being a caregiver. And he used to say things like, you just want me to serve you. You know, this isn't even real. You couldn't be in that much pain kind of deal. Inside the house, she got around with a wheelchair. One day she told me, and up to this point, I had a growing concern for her situation, for her safety. Well, one day she told me that her husband grabbed the front of her wheelchair to the arms on the front, shoved her backwards into a bedroom, closed the door, and locked her in, left the house. Was gone for hours. I had a conversation with her. I think we had a session maybe a day or 2 later. And all of a sudden, I had this knowing that she needed to get out of that house. Okay? She had no idea how that was going to happen. In fact, anytime I tried to talk to her about it, there was no way she was leaving her boys. Okay? But I just had this knowing she needed to get out of that house. So out of thin air comes out of my mouth without my having any pre-planning. I say to her, there must be someone in your life that will take you in for a week. I said to her, you have been living under such a tremendous amount of chronic stress that there's no bloody wonder that you will never see, you have not seen any healing over X number of years. Okay. You need some relief from that stress. Okay. I need you to find a way to get out of the house for a week. I said, you've got a sister. And she said, oh, that's not a solution. And I said, I don't care what you think. You're going to pick up the phone and you're going to call that sister. And then you're going to email me tomorrow because I want to know how the conversation went. And I'm holding you accountable to making that phone call. Okay. Turns out her sister said, come on down. Once she got there, her sister, turns out, I didn't even know at the time, was a cop that was in charge of cases that involved domestic abuse, okay? And at the point when I knew, when something came over me and said I had to get her out of the house, she hadn't even told me this guy had been physically abusive. She told me about the wheelchair thing, but I didn't know that he had ever struck her or anything like that. Okay. I just knew she had to get out. Once she got down there, both of her sisters said, "Oh my God, I can't believe you finally see this about him. We've seen it for years. You're not going back." And her sisters walked her through her first few years staying away. It was emotional torture for her because she had to leave her children, to leave this safety, like to be safe. And of course, you know, in the years afterwards, I've been coaching her for like off and on, probably over 12 years. Okay. So these boys have grown up since I first connected with her. And now the oldest one is married and has a child and is now finally forgiven his mother for leaving. The father tried to convince the boys that she had abandoned them. So they had lots of brainwashing against the mother over the years, right? But she's finally resolved, and God has seen to bless their hearts. And she now has one other son that's, you know, sort of maybe, but it was, I would never, Dottie, I would never have had the balls to force a client into such a situation.
Right.
I never would have. Yes,
Wow.
I'm a little bossy at times, but it was only through that divine inspiration that gave me the courage to say, you have to get out. Honestly, to this day, I don't know what might have happened if she didn't get out, but I found out later that he was being very abusive. He was like, yes, physical abuse, but there was some significant psychological abuse going on. And yeah, at one point, and he was modeling behavior for his children. At one point, she told me she was in the shower one day and one of her sons just walked in and threw the curtain open and said, "Where's," you know, like was demanding something from her. Yeah. And so that total lack of respect, like, was coming from the father. Yeah. So anyways, didn't mean to make this story longer than is this, but it's a gift. It's a gift to be given, to be, I feel like I'm a conduit. Does that make sense, Dottie? I feel like I'm a conduit, and people allow me into their lives. They trust me enough to get vulnerable with me. And I truly believe that it doesn't come from me. Like, whatever words they tell me have been wisdom in their lives, I don't claim responsibility because it's not me. I know, because when words come out of my mouth that I've never put together before in my human existence, you know, that I can recall, you know, I know it's coming from somewhere else.
Yes.
Well,
Very
yes,
good.
it was a powerful story. And,
Yes.
and you helped save her life. That's amazing.
And the fact that you did that you listened and you responded, and that's what I'm talking about. If people hear these ideas, we might call them voices, suggestions, and listen. So many times I've given somebody something that I see is coming, and to avoid it, I've told people, when you're driving down a certain road, I want you to slow down. And they call me later and say, "Oh my God, I was driving down that road, and then all of a sudden I thought, Dottie said slow down, and just then I looked up and there was a truck right in front of me, and I could stop in time." Those types of things come up quite often. I think the one that was the most amazing was a gentleman came in, and he was going to be moving up north and to live with his wife, and his wife had died. He was moving up north to live with his daughter and her 2 daughters. And he came in, he sat down, I started to do a reading, and all of a sudden I said, "Oh, you molested your daughter."
Wow.
And he said, "Yes." And
Oh
I
my
said,
gosh. And he said, yes, that's even,
and he said,
even
"Yes."
more unbelievable.
And this man was in his 70s, and he said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay. And you're going to go live with her and her 2 younger daughters?" I said, "Are you aware that you might be tempted?" And he said, "Yes. That's why I'm here." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you right now, if you even have thoughts of molesting anybody again, my spirit guide will tell me, and I will call the police on you." As a minister, anytime I have that come up in front of me, that's what I do.
Oh,
And you know what he said to me? Thank you. He'd been looking for somebody to know his problem and put a restraint on him.
Yeah.
And so I got a message, and it was about 6 months later. And he said, I'm doing so well. I've got a little cabin behind my daughter's house. I look at the girls as these little angels, and no way am I ever going to touch them. Thank you, though, for being my conscience.
Wow, Dottie, that is so powerful. I have chills. That's amazing.
Yeah. So there's things like that come up. Yeah.
That day that he met you, he was looking for someone to lighten the burden while also tightening this noose that was around his. It was the neck was. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe anymore. It was so hard for him. But you sharing with him that you knew actually allowed him to breathe because he had somebody watching his back.
Thank you. And the fact that I didn't judge him at no point did I say that he was wrong. Well, this is what you did. Now that's and he later on to explain that he had sat down and talked to his daughter and told her not necessarily why, but what he had been going through at the time. Mm-hmm. And he never thought he had hurt her. He never, he apologized. But it wouldn't have come about if he didn't feel like there was this person over here that was going to let him help him toe the line. And Trish, what kind of counselor are you?
I'm actually a coach. I have no counseling background. I should say I have no therapeutic background at all. I was actually trained. If you don't mind, I don't know how much time we have. I don't want to run us over. I was diagnosed with MS in 1993. And I was in corporate. I was a credit manager for 12 years at the time. And my life was as far from God as it could be. Nowhere in it was, any kind of spirituality. And the diagnosis gave me a big wake-up call. And I lost my job directly after my diagnosis. Had to take my employer to human rights and won, and realized that, wow, bad things can happen, but good things can happen even when bad things happen. And but I learned so much from that, and I realized that it didn't have to go down like that. I started volunteering. I got myself trained in support counseling, peer support counseling, and I was providing peer support counseling 30 hours a week to people with MS over the phone as a volunteer. For a good number of years, until finally my MS went into remission, and I decided I wanted to go back to work. And after having done so much peer support counseling, coaching seemed like a really awesome progression from there. So I got certified as a coach, and I've been at it for 18 years now. I specialize in working with people with disabilities, most especially entrepreneurs with disabilities, because I'm a huge techie geek. Yeah.
Trish does know her technology, that is for sure. And Trish is my guest in our next show, Stories of Hope, Inspiration, and Overcoming Adversity. So we'll get to dive in more.
Dottie, can I ask you to do a reading for me? Or is that inappropriate?
You mean right now? You want to have a question for me, or you want to call me later and make an appointment? Which?
No. Let's just do it on the air. Let's do it on the air. I'm totally down with that if you are.
Sure.
I've lost a number of beings, let's call beings, animals, and people. Closest to me was my mom. And
but she's there with you, so you didn't lose her.
Yeah.
Okay. You feel it. What my guide says, you feel her every once in a while, but you're afraid that you're just making it up. And ask her to give you a sign.
She does all the time. I'm so resistant to believe it. Can I share with you what the sign is? It's always the same sign.
Sure.
And it's like, I look at the clock, I'm going to say maybe, 20 times a day. At least 4 to 5 times a day. I see 111. I see 222.
Right.
I see triple numbers, or 10 10, 11 11, 12 12. I see those. It's like chronic.
Right.
And I feel like this is her just whenever I see that, that's her just saying, "Hey, I'm here."
Right. Because
"Hey, I saw that," or "I heard that."
see, the one thing that spirit can manipulate, because when you die and you leave, you become energy. So the closest akin they are to contacting us is through electricity. So anything electrical. I have one lady that every morning her coffee pot just turns on all by itself. And she said, my dad loved coffee, so I wake up every morning with the smell of coffee. And yeah, do you think it's my dad? Well, of course it's your dad, And people will have TV will go on, or a radio, or something electrical. Lights go on and off in their building. Something happens, and anything like that they can utilize to let us know, I'm here. And it's a loving affirmation for you that your mother isn't completely gone. Her physical being is gone. When you hear people talking about seeing ghosts or specters, or that's a whole different thing, and I can go into that some other time. But for you, your mom is in spirit, and you're going to find, for me, my grandfather comes in with the tune of cool, clear water. My grandmother smells like lavender. My mother comes in with a just warm, loving thing. And when my dad comes in, it's usually kind of like hands clapping. Each one has a different way of letting me know I'm here. And then I can utilize that however I want to. And I can say, oh, Mom, I really need to talk to you. And then I just feel this, and I sit down and talk. My grandmother,
I have always wanted to believe what my thoughts were around, but you know what, Dottie, you just put icing on the cake and a bow around it, and just gave me you gave me the validation that I have felt I have needed for a long time around my spiritual beliefs. And I very, very much appreciate
excellent.
That.
Because you're going to be asked by somebody within the next week, do you believe that people when they die can get in touch with us? And you can say to them, yes, they do, but the way they do it is through electrical things.
Electricity, that I never knew. That's fascinating.
I didn't know that either.
That's the energy that's most akin to what they can do, because they can't really move furniture that well or anything else. But boy, they can mess with electricity. Positive and negative.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Dottie.
Trish is overwhelmed with joy, I think.
Yeah.
And then you can even, if you've had as many people as I have who've passed, I've had 5 people through COVID just this year, last year. But think of that. Just say, okay, I'm getting you confused. I'm getting your message confused. Do something so I know it's you. Do something that reminds me of you, so I will know you're contacting me. Okay. It's not real easy to contact us, but sometimes they feel like we need it.
Yes, and we do.
Yeah.
Yes, and we certainly do. We certainly do.
Well, that was quite moving. Thank you so much, Dottie, and thank you so much. I feel like this beautiful connection was made here today.
Yeah. Yeah, and oh my goodness, how I would love to help you with your disabled ministry your members, how I would. So please,
I have things that come up with my ministry and with people with various things going on. I have a couple of people who are totally blind, and I always want to kind of help them. And I got hit by a cane by one woman who said, no, don't help me. I'm not disabled.
Yeah.
I just don't see well. I mean, she was really, don't do that. And, at first you go, I was just trying to help. And then you think, wait a minute, she has to prove to herself that she's capable. I'm not proving she's capable if I step in and help her without asking. And so
when I teach accessible customer service, I teach to always ask, can, 2 3-letter words. Can I help and how can I help?
Right.
Because never assume somebody wants help.
Right.
Because that might be all they could muster to do for the day, and that's their sense of accomplishment. And I have a little video that shows a woman who's having difficulty with mobility, goes to open a door. It's a glass door. There's a woman on the other side. She thinks she's helping. She pulls the door open. Well, the woman falls right over because she was leaning into the door for balance, right? You just never know. Yeah.
That's right. Don't assume. Don't assume.
Yeah. Pleasure, Doti.
Well, I'm so glad that we had this connection here, and I know you two will connect after this. But Trish, what's the best way to reach you?
Best way to reach me is Trish at changingpaces.com. That's paces as in steps, as in slowing down. PACES, changingpaces.com. But if you're sure that you want to chat with me, and Doti, this is the piece I want to give you. It's 4 talkwithtrish.com. You go there and you book yourself onto my calendar. Okay. And I get to see you one-on-one. That will be
good. Good. Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. 4 talkwithtrish.com.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Jack.
Trish. Reverend Doti Boon, what's the best way to reach you?
I am old school. You just go on and say safe Doti at AOL.com. And the safe DOTI, SAFE, safe DOTI at AOL.com. And there I am. Yeah. And I'll respond to you. And then I have a church. You know, we've been doing our church virtually, and every Sunday, and we have so many different unique people that talk at our church services. And so we have this wonderful woman, Reverend Joyce Brown, who's going to be speaking this Sunday, and that's at 10:30. And you can find us on YouTube. We are the Center for Creative Living.
The Center for Creative Living on YouTube channel, and churches at 10:30, and that's Pacific Daylight Time.
Yeah. And you get to see my smiling face. I do the introduction, and then we have people that do things with meditation, and very interesting, as I said, that we have so many different things going on at our center. So we always love to have new people get in touch with us. And now with the pandemic, it's so nice to be able to reach out and touch people. I want to give you something before we leave, because something I have done as my way of helping during the pandemic is I make 4 phone calls a day, not to the same people, and people that I haven't heard of from years sometime. And I just take the time. Sometimes I spend 4 hours making 4 phone calls, and sometimes I just spend 40 minutes making 4 phone calls, depending how long that person needs. And that outreach has been so amazing, because when I talk to people, they say, oh, I haven't talked to anybody in months or a year. And they are so burdened by this pandemic that they don't think to reach out. And so please, if you're hearing this and you're listening to this, reach out and touch people by phone, by text, by I don't care how, what media, because folks are getting depressed, folks are getting angry, and folks are dying because they're feeling so alone. They're shutting down. So please do that as your responsibility. Contact people. And if you can't call people, send them cards.
People love that.
Yeah.
Left me a card in the mail. Yes. Thank you. Very wise words. So please don't stay isolated. I know here on the East Coast now we have a gas crisis, which I just saw a fuel truck pull up, which is great news, but people can't go anywhere because there's no gas at the gas tank. So you have to reach out and let's support each other. Be kind. I'm loving this connection. I'm sending hello to Aminah. We miss you. We hope you're having a great time. And it's been a pleasure having you here. Our next show is right around the corner. Trish is my guest, Stories of Hope, Inspiration, Overcoming Adversity. And then the hour after that, we have the variety show with my co-host, Lori Mendelson. So stay with us. Yes, thank you. In case you missed the beginning of the show or you want to see any of our shows, it's so easy. All you have to do is go over to YouTube and go to our channel, Dr. Jacalyn LLC, and you can find all of our shows there. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Trish. Thank you, Reverend Dottie. Thank you, Corky.
Thank you.
We'll see you again next time.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Story Garden. Your host, Diane Boehm. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Diane Floyd Boehm tells wonderful stories that warm the heart, spark the imagination, and unite people and families across generations. For children, Diane's Harry the Camel connects with all of us who've ever wondered how different our lives might have been if only we'd been born something better, like a wonderful horse instead of an ordinary camel. In the end, we all learn along with Harry that there's nothing better than just being yourself. Diane's Little Girl in the Moon looks down on earthbound children and wonders if they know she's just like them. A story of love, home, and the bond between mother and daughter, its powerful theme that we're each of us different yet all of us the same plants a seed in children that promises to blossom within a loving and trusting grown-up. Diane's new biography, Rise, recounts the experiences of her grandmother, Ruby, to reveal the hidden strength of the human spirit. Ruby's story inspires all of us to become the best versions of ourselves. You'll find all of Diane's delightful books and much more at DianeFloydBoehm.com. Visit DianeFloydBoehm.com. That's DianeFloydBoehm.com.